That's right. What you've just witnessed is an auto attack dealing an AoE 602 magic damage, coming from a 3-item Azir at level 15. Let me tell you, this champion deals some damage now. Remember the 13.5 patch? Remember the 42% win rate? Well, that's all water under the bridge now. Azir is strong. Pretty good, in fact. Okay, maybe that's stretching it a bit. But the matter of fact is, WMAX has a 49% win rate. Pretty big sample size as well. When was the last time Azir had a win rate even close to 50%? The durability patch, right? When he was so strong that he got 3 crippling nerfs at once just to keep him under control. Well, now he's getting close to that power level. Except, instead of nerfs, there's a good chance that what waits for him in the future is more buffs. That's because now, although he's more viable for solo queue and especially low and mid elo, he has actual weaknesses. So let's go over those real quick before we can get to why he's really strong now. First off, his early game is flat out weak. It's no KO or Aurelion Soul levels of useless, but still, you have barely any mana to trade before Lost Chapter, and your damage is very underwhelming before you get around 80 to 100 AP. Since you have to max W now, your Q is on a massive cooldown for the entire early game. Not being able to poke like you could before is one thing, but this long cooldown also means that your DPS is affected, since you can't keep repositioning soldiers when people step out of them. That's why our early game skirmishing and roaming is clunky and pretty much powerless. Another little problem that Azir has now is that his long range poke is significantly weaker. Not only because casting Q twice will drain you out of mana like Eula drains me out of, but also because the base damage is weaker, and you won't put any points into it until level 8. This means that your poke is weaker, on a longer cooldown, and has less synergy with runes like Electrocute and Comet. Versatility is also a big thing that he lost. Before, you could make all of these runes work perfectly well. Now, you kinda need the attack speed to make use of the new ratios, and to compensate for the lack of free attack speed on your kit. Lethal Tempo and Halo Blades are the main runes now. One for DPS and one for burst, and that's it. Notice how there's no more viable poke keystone. That is on purpose, since it was poke and early game prio that made him too strong in pro play. But how did Riot compensate for those weaknesses? By making him a real DPS carry later on in the game. Sure, your early sucks now. Getting solo kills with Ignite has never been more difficult. However, now you have a very clear point to play towards. Once you get to level 13, 2 items on this champion, 3 items if you're going for DPS, you will feel the power spike. As his mid-game has always been underwhelming, but now you can really feel that power curve increasing, since putting points on the W significantly increases the damage on each auto attack, and getting levels increases your base attack speed by a good amount, making it so that any extra attack speed you build will be much more effective. This essentially means that although your early game is much weaker now, it's still safe and allows you to scale really damn hard. Granted, you won't be a late game 1v9 ultra carry like Kayle, Aurelion Sol or Vladimir, but the idea is that you can have more agency than them in the mid game and try to snowball from there, rather than being AFK in a side lane until level 16. Besides, Riot is looking into buffing Azir even further in patch 13.9, considering that most of the changes he's got so far were a mix of buffs and nerfs that mostly change his playstyle to be easier to balance. Now that this part is mostly done, there's nowhere to go but up, so I guess it's time to say goodbye. It's been real Vex, but I don't need you to climb anymore. I can finally go back to my main champion now that he's got his kneecaps mostly restored. What do you think of Azir's state at the moment? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. That's all for me now. Cheers.